Warning. Channel Robozoid contains adult language, adult content, strong opinions, and verbal brutality. Viewer discretion is advised. Things are looking very, very grim for Eric Swallowswell. The reason why? Well, as we've already covered before in a previous video or two, he's finished. He's done. I mean, his political career is toast. I mean, he basically boned some chick or a bunch of chicks, and now he's boned. Because, as I've already discussed before in a previous video, the last video, in fact, that was, of course, well, was this guy a family man, a devoted family man, or was he a degenerate? Was he a folk hero or an antichrist? Well, he's not ever going to be treated like a folk hero anymore, and nobody will ever see him as a family man again after these incidents have come out, because, as it turns out, I thought most of them would be a hoax set up by a bunch of gold diggers, but it turns out that they are all actually true. So, yeah, Eric swallows well, he swallowed well, but he didn't spit it out, apparently. So, let's face it, his career is over. He's never going to be able to run for governor of California. And you know what else? It seems that he's never going to be able to run for a political office at all whatsoever. Just take a look.
I was a prosecutor in Oakland for 7 years. And where justice was warranted and mercy was warranted, I showed it. And where a stiff punishment was warranted because somebody got hurt,
People do look 100 pounds heavier on television.
Tolerates violence against women in our state. Period.
Several months later.
Breaking news because the 5 gets results, maybe. Eric Swalwell is resigning from Congress. He said this in a statement. I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegation made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, but it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. So Max Gordon, he's out in California. He's got the latest for us. Had you on Newsroom this morning. This is quite a turn of events.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this isn't necessarily unexpected, but it is definitely a shock to the political world. He was a leading candidate for California governor just a couple of days ago, but then this bombshell report came out in the San Francisco Chronicle with allegations that he sexually assaulted a woman while she was one of his staffers. Then CNN came out with a separate report interviewing 3 additional women, saying that
we already covered that.
Impropriety that had
well,
gone
one
on.
of them.
It was really just a weekend of implosion for his campaign, where we had staffers quitting, and then we had the Democratic establishment telling Swalwell that he should drop out the race for California governor. He then did that on Sunday evening, and then now today we see that he is going to be vacating his congressional seat. We had calls for him to step down from his congressional seat.
Yeah, no shit.
So, this is really going to be sending shockwaves throughout the political world, but not necessarily unexpected.
And since it's impossible for him to run now for any political office whatsoever, it turns out that he's actually retiring from Congress. Yeah, which is actually, of course, just a fancy way of saying he got kicked out. And you're going to see that right now as we play a series of news clips, and I do mean a series of non-stop news clips that do not stop. They just go on and on and on about Eric Swallowswell, beginning with this one here with our old pal who, well, apparently does swallow pretty well. If you know what I mean, and I think you do, with Andy Blooper himself. Take a look.
Of Texas has just confirmed he plans to retire from Congress. I want to go straight back to CNN's Mano Raju on Capitol Hill. Mano?
Yeah, this has been a scandal that has engulfed this congressman for several weeks in the aftermath of revelations that he had an extramarital affair with his aide. That aide later died by suicide. Initially, Tony Gonzalez had
Wow, there's a part I forgot to mention yesterday.
as the allegations were mounting, he admitted to that. Then he
That
decided
apparently
not to run for
the aide
re-election,
offed
and he
herself.
indicated repeatedly that he would not resign his seat from the House. But moments after the decision by Eric Swalwell, caught up in a separate sexual misconduct scandal, Gonzalez himself making the decision to resign following Eric Swalwell's decision to resign. Gonzalez himself saying he will step down from Congress, saying on X, saying there's a season for everything and God has a plan for us all. When Congress returns tomorrow,
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn.
To serve the great people of Texas. Now, the decision by both Gonzalez and Swalwell has a couple of key ramifications. One of which is that they both can avoid a House ethics probe. Both men were facing an investigation, but now that members are no longer serving in the House, that committee, the ethics committee, no longer has jurisdiction over those members, and expect that those investigations essentially to go away. Also, both men were facing expulsion votes in the United States House. That potentially could have succeeded. It would have required 2/3 majority in the United States House to go ahead, and both of those members clearly looking to avoid that possibility here. But Gonzalez had decided to stay on as a result of perhaps the Republican leadership not calling on him to step aside, because Anderson, as you know, this is the narrowest of majorities in the United States House.
True, we are talking about Andy Blooper here.
Congress, and Gonzalez had resigned. Johnson would have zero margin for error. He could not afford a single defection in the United States House. But now that Eric Swalwell has resigned and Gonzalez plans to do the same, that means that Johnson...
This is boring. Where's the guy with the charts? He's more animated.
Which shows you how every seat is so critical in the narrowly divided Republican House.
A little while later,
Republicans and others are saying that Democrats turned kind of a blind eye, that they knew what he was up to.
No, it's not true. That is absolutely positive. It's true when they say that, but it is absolutely not true.
You know, when Pelosi says it's not true, it is true.
I had none whatsoever.
What happens in California now? He was in many of the polls, the leading candidate.
Yes, he was.
That's gone. There's an army of candidates out there. And California has this quirky law, because it's ranked primaries, right, where you could end up with 2 Republicans on the ballot.
Well, it is.
How does that?
I agree that it is a quirky law. I do not agree that there'll be 2 Republicans at the top.
What I will say is that many people on the Hill knew about this.
Smack,
reporters have come forward, even in talking to me, saying that they had heard stories about this. But I do think that he has serious criminal problems on his hand, and I do think that he might end up in jail, Jesse. And if I could just share with you for a moment, not only did I receive forensic reporting showing that, that infamous video of him.
And yes, that is Anna Paulina Luna, once again, not wearing a
but I'm also
tie.
being told that, more stuff is going to be dropping in the next 24 hours. And then also, potentially, the individual that recorded that video in that hotel room, Jesse, was a female, and she was underage.
Oh, just so the audience is aware, there's a video that's circulating. Fox hasn't confirmed it yet. It appears to show Swalwell on a bed, maybe another guy making out with a girl. That's it. That's all we know.
Sure it wasn't the other guy making out with him?
We don't know, but if that's true, that is very, very, very bad news. But back up. You're saying reporters on the Hill knew Swalwell was a shade ball but didn't investigate? Because why? Because he was a Democrat?
I don't know why they didn't push this further. I think that there's a lot of kind of back scratching taking place on the Hill in general, because it's happening within our own party as well. But yes, they knew about it. They did not report on it. And you're seeing now that, I don't know about you, Jesse, but I don't have 50 staffers, let alone 50 staffers that would come out and say that this is wrong and that you need to resign from office, right? So it was clearly a pattern. And as you're seeing with some of the text messages coming out, and I think, again, with this criminal investigation, there's a lot there with him. So yes, he resigned, I think, to maybe save his family going through this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when he did what he decided to do, just based on the grounds of him having an inappropriate relationship with a staffer, but now we're looking at the criminal activity, and I stand by what I said, because I saw, again, the forensics report of that video, And if that is true, I would suggest that the Manhattan DA look into that.
Politics. This is your state, and Congressman
Oh
Swalwell.
my God, this just goes on and on.
Well, what's interesting is that the Democrats kind of got themselves in a pickle when Congressman LaMalfa, my dear, dear friend who represented the 1st District of California, passed away earlier this year. Governor Newsom decided to reschedule, for political reasons, I believe, that special election for later in August instead of doing it sooner. So now he's kind of stuck with the timeline that he's presented, and I'm sure that that's going to give Democrats here a lot of angst. But my reaction is when it rains, it pours. This was the beginning of what I'm sure was a flood of allegations. No one has ever considered Swalwell somebody who made good decisions when it came to hiring or women. And now roosters are coming home to roost.
Yeah, it really shakes up the governor's race. You think this guy was going to win? He might have won, right? Or no?
Well, he wasn't in the top 2, and this is
He
what
didn't stand a chance either
the state
way.
of California had been lamenting in the news openly for the past few weeks here in California, which was the fact that there were actually 2 Republicans who were taking the top 2 seats in the jungle primary, and that's all they move. The only people who move on in the California gubernatorial are the top 2 people.
Right, but then Trump endorsed one of them, right? He endorsed Hilton.
That's right, but it hasn't really. We haven't had polling since that happened. It just happened, and it showed that. Again, Republicans were in the top 2 seats. I'm not sure how much that would have changed with Trump's endorsement, but they said somebody needs to get out so we can consolidate the Democratic vote. And I believe this was an insider job, 100%. The fact that it came out in the San Francisco Chronicle means Nancy Pelosi was behind it, and you'll notice she was one of the first people to call on him to get out.
So who wins now? Or who's the favorite now? Someone earlier was saying looks good for like Steyer, the billionaire, Tom Steyer.
If you don't, Tom Steyer, Katie Porter, those are the 2 people that are in there, but don't count the
Katie
Republicans
Portley.
out. Look, Republicans are going to get behind one person, hopefully, if they're smart, in the same way that Democrats try to encourage Swalwell or somebody to get out of the way. They're going to want to consolidate their vote to have a chance, and it's going to be between Steyer and Katie Porter. You know, I believe money plays an unfortunately large role in who we end up electing, so I think Steyer's probably going to edge out, and Katie has a lot of baggage. If you've seen any of the videos about her, it's a horrific choice.
So there you saw it. Everybody ranging from, let us say, well, CNN, the Crescent News Network, Fox Noise, News Nation, and of course, somewhere in between, the punk in the orange pantsuit, and that would be Nancy Pelosi. The fact that I'm wearing an orange blouse today to go with her orange pantsuit, it's just a coincidence. It wasn't planned. You have to believe me when I say that. But in any case, yeah, it's pretty much over for Eric Swallowswell. His political career is finito, which of course is Spanish for finished. So, yep, that's the way it goes. You fool around, you fuck around, and you find out. So that's what he did. He fooled around, he found out. I mean, maybe in the old days of Bill Clinton, you could get away with this sort of thing. But in today's climate, when everyone is so suspicious of everybody else and looking over everybody's shoulders and so cowardly PC and so cravenly woke, well, yeah, apparently that's what's going to happen in a climate like this, where everyone just hates everybody else, everyone is suspicious of everyone else, and most important of all, when it comes to needing a helping hand or throwing a lifeline, they just push you under the bus. So there's poor Eric Swallowswell without a friend in the world. Poor guy. Well, I want to feel sorry for him because he doesn't have a friend in the world, but I can't feel sorry for him. This asshole spent his entire career out of hating President Trump and trying to basically throw the book at him during the same sexual assault charges that Trump faced 5-6 years ago. And, well, apparently those charges didn't stick because Trump became president again. And as for Eric Swallowswell, well, no gubernatorial seat in your future, pal. Looks like a prison cell is in your future, Buster. Just keep that in mind the next time you decide to fool around and, well, basically cheat on your own family. Are you a devoted family man, or are you the degenerate that I know you to be? Well, this has been the Robozoid saying, hope you have enjoyed this video for as long as it was. I apologize for that. And remember that wokeness is weakness, and of course, yeah, don't drink the Kool-Aid or the soy. Be here or, well, be somewhere else getting the wrong information.